Everybody, welcome to the Independent School District 279 School Board Candidate Forum. I'm Steve Erickson. I'm the Executive Director of the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of Joe Piquette, Chairman of our Government Affairs Committee, and the members of our chamber throughout Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Maple Grove, and Osseo, welcome to the forum. We're co-sponsoring this candidate forum to stimulate interest in the upcoming election on November 4th, so please, by all means, get out and vote. Our service to our communities and our members is nowhere more important than what we're doing tonight, and thank you for taking part in it. Neither one of our organizations, the League of Women Voters of Brooklyn Park, Osseo, and Maple Grove, or the Chamber, endorse any particular candidate, but I should say more precisely that we endorse all of them for stepping up to the opportunity and the challenge to serve their community and their schools. We'd like to thank the City of Maple Grove for the use of their facility, and also Northwest Community Television for televising this event, as well as the subsequent retelecast of the event. It's now my pleasure to introduce Deanne Christensen, representing the League of Women Voters for this forum. Please welcome Deanne.
Good evening. As you know, my name is Deanne Christensen, and I'm a member, is that better? Thank you. I am a member of the Brooklyn Park, Osseo, Maple Grove League of Women Voters. We're happy you could join us at this Maple Grove School Board Candidates Forum. And I'd like to thank the North Hennepin Chamber of Commerce also for co-sponsoring the forum. I would also like to thank Cable 12 for taping and rebroadcasting this forum. And so you can also watch it on your cable TV. Our moderator will be happy to ask your questions if they are legible and meet the following criteria. If the question has not already been asked, and if it is not a personal attack on any of the candidates running for these offices. If you would like to submit a question, I have cards here. Please raise your hand and I will bring them, or some other usher will bring them to you. Please submit your questions early so the moderator may ask them before the closing statements are made. And speaking of the moderator, I would like to now introduce you to Kathy Welchel. She is the moderator for the evening, and she's a member of the ABC League of Women Voters. That's Anoka Blaine, Coon Rapids. She lives in Coon Rapids, so she doesn't have an intimate bias here. And we're pleased to have her here this evening. Kathy?
Thank you. Does this work? Well, yes, as Dee said, my name is Kathy Welchel, and I'm very pleased to be the moderator. This forum, as you have already heard, is co-sponsored by the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce and the Brooklyn Park, Osseo, and Maple Grove League of Women Voters. Through its 90-plus year history, the League has been recognized as a leader in voter education. It is respected for advocacy for good government. And it is our mission to promote citizen involvement in government and increase public understanding of major public policy issues. We believe that informed citizenry is the foundation of effective democracy. While we do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse or support political parties or candidates. Now, we do encourage members as individuals, as we encourage each of you to get involved in your community and the political party of your choice. Tonight's forum will present the School Board District 279 candidates. The Sheriff Candidate Forum has been canceled. Now, we do ask that you withhold your applause till all the candidates are finished answering questions, to be as quiet as possible to give the candidates the opportunity to be heard. Also, we ask that you turn off all your cell phones and pagers and that you do not tape or take photographs of this. If you want to have a copy of this, the Channel 12 is going to make a DVD of the entire forum available, and I think these are out on the table back there. So you can order your own copy, or you can watch it on Channel 12. They will probably show it multiple times. So then, I think that it is time for us to go to the questions. And since there's so many candidates, we're doing a random access of the candidates so that they each get a chance to be first at some point. The opening remarks will be 2 minutes for each candidate. And there will be a timekeeper, 2 minutes for the opening statement and 1 minute for each of the questions and 1 minute for the closing statement, is what I was told. Hope that's okay. All right, so the opening statement will focus on, please tell us your background and your previous school district involvement that supports your candidacy for this position. And the first person that we'll hear from is Pa Moduan.
Thank you. My name is Pa Moduan. You can call me Pa. On behalf of my colleagues here, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting this fantastic, if I could call it, Meet the People by the school board candidates. Without further ado, I would like to give you a brief background. I'm a recent immigrant from the West African country called the Gambia. I'm an army officer as my background, and I am married with 3 children, going to junior high and 1 in kindergarten. I had a school board experience. I was board member for Odyssey Academy in Brooklyn Center for about 2 years. And through that, I had a lot of experience in how budgeting, governing, fiscal responsibility, and all those aspects that regard bringing up a school. I have also been highly involved in my community and other civic engagement as activities in the Twin Cities areas. So I am quite qualified. I am also a graduate of the University of Minnesota with a political science degree in BS degree, and also a Master of Public Affairs at the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. Sorry. So, with all these activities and accolades, I believe I have the conviction and background to serve my people quite well as a candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Radius Guess.
Hello, everyone. I just want to thank you all for extending the invitation to all of us to be part of this forum. My background is pretty diverse. I have about 15 years of experience working in educational leadership, working for the Colorado Department of Education in Denver, Lincoln Public Schools in Nebraska, Northwest Suburban Integration School District here in Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park area, Bloomington Public Schools in Bloomington, Minnesota, as well as our nation's largest and oldest child advocacy organization, which is National PTA. I currently serve on 2 district work groups for the Osseo schools, working very closely with the African Immigrant Services. One is examining diversifying hiring practices, and the other one is taking a look at eliminating nonviolent suspensions. I represent parents on 2 Minnesota Department of Education work groups, and one is a Title IX family engagement stakeholders, and the other one was I'm a commissioner appointed to examine the achievement gap and make recommendations to the legislature in 2015 January. I have about 25 years of experience leading systemic change models of accountability in schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker will be Jessica Craig.
Hello, I'm Jessica Craig. I'm grateful for this opportunity tonight. I'm alongside wonderful people, and that's amazing. A little bit about myself. I'm a mother of 3 daughters. I have an associate's degree, and I'm currently a pre-law student at St. Cloud State University. I haven't been in the district very long, just over a year, and I've gotten involved quite quickly. I'm co-vice president of the Fernbrook PTO. I'm head chair of the Fernbrook Carnival Committee, and I'm also an Art Adventures volunteer. So I'm an active parent in this district. And also, I'm a former legislative assistant for the state of Minnesota, working in a nonpartisan office. I was there for 3 sessions, and I was in charge of proofing and editing legislative documents and getting documents ready for committee hearings as well as the House floor. So I have experience looking at legislative language, which I think will carry well into this position, especially researching state statutes, as well as other issues before me should I be elected to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Colette Guyette Hempel.
Good evening. Thank you for coming, and thank you to our hosts for this evening. I have a Bachelor's of Arts degree in psychology with a minor in child psych from the U of M. I've been a district resident for over 20 years. I've been on the DPAC committee for the district as well as Edinbrook's PTA. I've been a long-time person involved with community comments and going to several board meetings over the last 15 years and being active in trying to influence the direction that the school board has taken on many areas. I work for Minneapolis Public Schools at Anthony Middle School in South Minneapolis, who is one of the top 15% schools in the state as far as closing the achievement gap. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Susan Brown Whistler. Maybe not.
Someone else wants in. My name is Susan Brown Whistler, and I am relatively new to the school district. I have 2 children that I raised in other states, and so I was part of the school process in various towns in the South. I worked as a volunteer in many schools. I have done contributions to the school. I've been active in the parent associations. I have a master's degree from the University of Arkansas in experimental psychology with a focus on child and adult development, particularly as it applies to cognitive processes and memory and learning. I am really excited to have an opportunity to be part of the next level of education. I've been a student or an educator my whole life, 30 years in teaching, and worked with children of all ages. I've been a mentor and a tutor to adolescents when I was in my graduate program. I'd really like to be elected to the position. I thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be James Burgett.
Hello, I'm Jim Burgett, and I'm currently serving on the school board as treasurer, and I'm the only incumbent seeking re-election this fall. I'll begin with my background. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering. I work as a senior principal design engineer for a local medical device company. My wife Carrie and I have 3 children. My 2 girls are currently attending Osseo Junior High and Maple Grove Senior High, and my son is a recent graduate. As a school board member, I've represented the community on many issues over the years. These include incorporating feedback during prioritized budget cutting, responding to issues involving standards-based grading, volunteering with the levy campaign, and supporting grade reconfiguration to simultaneously provide all-day K, achieve four-year high schools, and prevent significant boundary changes that would otherwise occur. Our district is in the midst of some major initiatives, and I'm seeking re-election so that I can see these through to completion. My goal is to maximize student achievement while minimizing taxpayer expense. I sincerely ask for your vote on November 4th. And once again, I'd also like to thank the North Hennepin community for supporting this event and the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Robert Gerhardt.
Thank you, Catherine. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. I'd like to thank the Chamber as well. It's a lot of work that goes into an event like this. My name is Robert Gerhardt. I am a resident of the district. I've lived in Maple Grove for about 16 years now. I'm married. I have 4 girls that go to school in Brooklyn Park, Osseo, and Maple Grove, 3 different schools, 3 different towns. And through that time, I've become very familiar with the district and the communities that we're in. I've spent the last few years attending many school board meetings, work sessions, things like that, and seeing what's really going on behind the scenes and becoming very familiar with that. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I have a master's degree in management, and I currently work for one of the world's leading intellectual property law firms, so I'm a problem solver. I also work in the world of ideas. As far as community involvement and district involvement, I've been on the Community Education Program Advisory Council, CPAC. I've been involved with the district website redesign advisory committee, Rice Lake Elementary PTO, Birch Grove PTO, Maple Grove volleyball boosters. I've been a science fair judge at Rice Lake and in my own alma mater. And I just like to be able to be here to apply my talents to some of the challenges that we're facing. In my line of work and in my life, I have a combination of skills that lets me know how to deal with people, which is important in a job like this, technology, which is becoming an even more important role in a position like this, and money. The school district controls over $250 million a year. It's not a job to be taken lightly. And I think somebody with a formal background is what's required in order to do the job properly. So I thank you and I ask for your vote on the 4th.
Just would everybody take a minute and make sure that your mics are on? There should be a little blue light in front of that. And I was just noticing that not everybody was being heard as evenly, so check your mics. And we will have the last speaker, Agwan Monyi. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Odowa Gamonyi. I live in Brooklyn Park with my wife and 3 children. I have 2 of my kids in our district here. Actually, they go to Palmer Lake Elementary. We've been in this area for about 6 years, going on 7 years now. We primarily lived in Maplewood before we moved back this way about 6 years ago. For the time we have been in this area, I have really enjoyed it because you have a lot of great people, a lot of different activity. The diversity in our community is just outstanding. As a parent, like many of you, you know the challenges we face. As a parent, like many of you know, one of the things we care about for our children is best education. It's not just education. We say the best educational opportunity, and that's what I care for. Now, as an immigrant, I know firsthand, the relationship between good education and the American dream. It's one thing to say American dream. No, it's not that easy without a sound education. So I understand how that goes. My background is in psychology, and I work as a mental health practitioner. My experience in mental health practitioner basically, has taught me how to problem solve, deal with different people. So as a business owner and a mental health practitioner, combining those experiences together, for one, it has taught me, how to set priorities and, place attention on what is needed the most. Now, when you set priorities, it is based on your need. So in relation to what the school board does, I'm very familiar with setting priorities and monitoring progress, which is one of the responsibilities of the school board. If I'm lucky to be elected, I will carry your voice with me, and you will hear my voice all the time on the board. Thank you.
And now we will hear from Delmar Francis. Please tell us about your background and previous school district involvement that supports your candidacy for this position.
It's Delma.
Delma.
Yes.
Sorry.
First of all, I want to apologize for being late. I wrote the time down wrong in my day planner. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I am Delma Francis. I have been a substitute teacher in the Osseo district for 6 years, as well as several other districts. My background is in journalism. I was a reporter and editor at the Star Tribune until 2007 when the layoffs came along. And then I decided to go into substitute teaching because everyone in my family is in education except my brother and me. So I thought, I mean, my mother's up there now looking down saying, I told you. But anyway, I really think that I bring a lot to the table because of my experience as a substitute teacher. I've been a substitute teacher in the district in all levels from pre-K through 12th grade. So I see what's going on and I understand what we do well and what we need to work on. I think that Osseo is an excellent school district, but nobody's perfect. I want to go for perfection. How about you? So anyway, that's why I am running for the board, and I hope that you will vote for me on November 4th.
Thank you. We will now go to our second question, and we will start with Delma. Do you feel the district is doing a good job of educating its students and preparing them for post-secondary education or for entry into the workforce?
Okay, and I did forget to tell you that my background, I have a bachelor's degree in journalism and a master's degree in community development. I do think the district is doing a good job, but it could be better, like I said. It's so important to prepare our young people for after school. They need to have as much of our time and energies as possible. We need good technology, which I think the district has good technology and is working on getting more. I think we've got an incredibly large achievement gap. We need to work on that because I would like to see us prepare every child for what they can best do. I want to see every child reach his or her fullest potential, whatever that might be. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will hear from Agan Monrier, the same question. Do you believe that the district is doing a good job of educating the students and preparing them for post-secondary education or for entry into the workforce?
Thank you. It is fair to say that the district is doing a great job educating, some of our students, and some of the students are not, and that is the reason for the achievement gap that we are facing today. When you meet parents whose children are not doing well, you cannot tell them the district is educating the kids very well. When you meet parents whose kids are doing very well, you cannot tell them that the district is not doing well. But what is fair to say is that, because some of the kids are doing well, we have to give credit where credit is due. My concern is, it's not that we cannot do it, because we already have an example of how to do it. If some of our kids are doing well, why don't we look at what those kids who are doing well are doing and copy it and bring it to those who are not doing well? Now, one of the challenges that face us is this achievement gap. How are we going to do that? It's going to require a combination of everybody, bringing everybody to the table to assess the best way to reach those who are not doing well.
Thank you. Robert Gerhardt, do you believe that the district is doing a good job of educating the students and preparing them for post-secondary education or for entry into the workforce?
In general, yes, but of course we can always do better. For an example, for the 2013 graduating class, Osseo's on-time graduation rate was 81.8% compared to a state average of 79.5%, so that's something to be really proud of. Maple Grove Senior already beats the state average by about 10%. Osseo High improved by 2%, and black students showed an improvement of about 24%. Park Center improved by a whopping 10%, and black students improved by an amazing 26%, so that's something to be really proud of. But there's still work to be done. The numbers for students receiving special education services is slightly lower than the state average, but many of those students participate in transition programs that allow them to continue their education through age 21, so that throws off the numbers a little bit. And the rate for Hispanic students also remains slightly below the state average, so there's some improvement that could be made there as well.
Thank you. Jim Burgett, do you believe the district is doing a good job of educating students and preparing them for post-secondary education or entry into the workforce?
For the most part, yes. The majority of our students are well prepared for college and career programs. For example, my son graduated from Maple Grove Junior High just over a year ago. Without prompting, he recently told me that he was very happy with the education that he received. He felt well prepared for his freshman year at school, especially compared to some of his college classmates. That said, I know we are not meeting the needs of every student. Each school in the district has a site improvement plan. These plans incorporate achievement data, outline the specific areas that need adjustment, and provide a continuous improvement mindset for staff. We will also be working to incorporate the statewide World's Best Workforce legislation requirements. So there's definitely work yet to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll next hear from Colette Goyat-Hempel.
There are some ways we can improve college readiness and preparing for the workforce. These things include a STEP program like Anoka Hennepin has had for several years. And I've asked the school board to consider combining with like North Hennepin Community College or the Technical College and providing these classes that ready our children for the workforce. That plus 7-hour class days. We have less credits for our high school students than Anoka Hennepin, Minneapolis, and Wayzata, and that's whether you consider it a 4-year or a 3-year program. It doesn't matter, it's based on per year. And we need more advanced and college courses, such as having St. Cloud State provide biology and other classes in our high schools.
Thank you. Susan Brown Whistler, do you believe the district is doing a good job of educating the students and preparing them for the post-secondary education or entry into the workforce?
Well, I'm teaching at the post-secondary education at North Hennepin Community College, so I get a lot of the students from this district, as well as some from outside the district. I think I have to make a distinction between high-achieving and lower-achieving students. Students that are motivated, students that take advantage of the educational opportunities do well. There are a lot of students who have dropped out and are now coming back to college and don't have the skills that they would have gotten if they'd stayed in high school. And then there are the students who just maybe barely made it through high school or skated through, and they don't have the skills they need again to go on to college. So I think we need to address the fact that this just isn't a question of the entire population. It's a question of figuring out what individual groups of children need to help them succeed.
Thank you. Jessica Craig, do you believe the district is doing a good job of educating the students and preparing them for post-secondary education or entry into the workforce?
Yes, I do believe the district is doing a good job in preparing students, and I believe it will become even better. The state has scrapped the senior grad testing and replaced it with state-funded ACT testing for juniors. This will be more helpful in guiding individual students. The former grad testing measured the performance of the school, whereas the ACT testing will measure the performance of each student. That combined with the Explore and Plan assessments for college and career planning given to 8th and 10th graders, those together, I believe, will help improve graduation rates in our district and help students understand their own strengths, which will better prepare them for life outside of high school. So yes, I do believe the district is doing a good job.
Thank you. Radius Guess, do you believe the district is doing a good job of educating the students and preparing them for post-secondary education or the workforce?
You know, I answer the question, Catherine, with a question to us all, and that is, let's take a look at what the data say. If you go into any elementary school and you ask children, what do they want to be when they grow up? They'll say, I want to be a scientist, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a doctor. It doesn't matter what the race, ethnicity, culture, language of that particular child, they have aspirations, they have dreams, they know what they want to be when they grow up. You take that same question to a high school and you ask students, what do you want to be when you grow up? They're going to say the exact same thing. The dream has not changed. The problem is they've not met the required courses. They don't have the math courses to pursue those kinds of professions. They haven't continued their science education. The writing skills are poor. When you take a look at a report that was issued by the U.S. News and World Report, Osseo Senior, the College Readiness Index is 22.0, Maple Grove 32.6, Park Center 14.2, Edina 63.7. We have work to do.
Thank you. And Pamaduan, you care to speak to the question too? I
Yes,
can
please.
repeat it
Thank
if
you.
like.
I have a feeling that we need to look at the constituents that make up the school system, and that is the administrators, the families and teachers. What can we do to make our children satisfy these requirements so that the engineers and the computer tech experts that are working in our school system, in our workplaces, are our children. I was door knocking and I found one parent, and I asked him this question: why are your children not those engineers? He looked up with surprise. So I will just leave you with that question to answer some of the things that are really challenging in our school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next question, and the first responder will be Susan Brown Whistler. Do you support the present school board's decision to put a $9 million 5-year levy and a $5 million 10-year technology levy on the ballot for this election? Why or why not?
I did not have that as a preparatory question. Could you repeat it for me, please?
Actually, there is no levy on the ballot this fall.
Oh,
That was last year.
well,
Thank you.
I'm just
I
reading
thought,
what
boy,
they
I'm
did.
a real idiot.
All right, so that's an invalid question.
We were all worried.
No. Okay, I did not get the updated version. The question is, now the replacement question. Do you believe that District 279 is performing well in closing the achievement gap? And if not, what would you propose to enhance that effort?
All right, I've been, for the last 6 weeks or so, I've been touring the schools in the district and visiting principals and Superintendent McGuire. And they all agree that there's still an achievement gap that needs to be addressed. And I think I'm going to go back to kind of what I said in the last question. We've got to identify children and what's keeping them from succeeding. It could be something that's happening in the school. It could be something that's happening at home. We need to find out what's happening and what we can do to get those kids engaged, get them excited about learning. I've seen a couple of things in the schools. One of the high schools, and offhand I can't remember which one, has an incredible automotive program. That's wonderful. Some kids don't like learning literature. Some kids aren't good at trigonometry. Give them an opportunity to use their hands if that's where they want to go. I think those are the things we can do rather than focusing on things like ethnicity or socioeconomic status. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Burgett, what do you think about the achievement gap, and is the district closing it?
We have made strides, but there is more work to be done. Today, Superintendent McGuire sent an email to all staff reporting MMR information and our progress toward closing the gap. The state MMR system takes multiple factors into account: proficiency, student growth, achievement gap reduction, and for high schools, graduation rates. All three of our comprehensive high schools earned high MMR scores. Park Center made particularly strong improvements in both gap closing and growth. Maple Grove's MMR ranked them amongst the top 10 public comprehensive high schools in Minnesota. Overall, our gap closing graduation rate results for Black students has increased at the district level from 51.4% in 2009 to 74.1% in 2013. While we celebrate success, we also have data across the district that shows where we need to improve. As a system, we will continue to provide differentiated support to schools so that all students in all of our schools achieve at high levels.
Thank you. Delma Francis.
Okay, I believe that we need to look to homes and parents in helping us close this achievement gap. Back when I was in school, and I'm sure a lot of you, home and school worked very closely together, hand in hand. That's not happening anymore. A lot of parents are working 2 and 3 jobs just to make it. They don't know. I've never met a parent yet that wants to see his or her child fail, but they just don't know how to help them succeed. And I think it's up to us to educate them as to how to go about this. Let them know how important it is for their child to see them in the school as a volunteer or whatever. And I think that will make a big difference, because if education is important to parents, then it will be important to kids. And that will improve their desire to study and do what they need to do. But I think that is where we need to look. We have home-school liaisons. Instead of just making phone calls, they need to be out knocking on doors and talking to parents face-to-face. Thank you.
Thank you. Agan Moigny, do you believe that the district is performing well?
Again, though, to answer that question, for me, I'll have to go back to the mission of the district. What is the mission? The mission is to inspire and prepare all kids. So when you have 20% failing, when you have 2% failing, we've not achieved our goal. So until we are able to have that score where we say all kids, because that is our mission. The mission is prepare and inspire all of them, not some, no, all of them, until we get there, regardless of what the statistics say. Because when it comes down to it, parents are asking, why is my only child failing in this school? So that is where we have to begin. Because when you talk about the achievement gap, one thing the district does very well that I give them credit for, they acknowledge that achievement gap does exist. And in terms of how to close it, I don't necessarily believe it has to be on the school alone. The parents, the community, everybody has to be involved. But I think the school needs to take the leadership role in terms of how to form relationship with the parents and bring them in. Then in terms, maybe another thing we need to do, because the... Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Gerhardt.
Well, Osseo's made some marginal gains in closing the achievement gap, about 3% according to the numbers that I've seen. And again, according to the numbers that I've seen, the district graduation rate for black students has improved by about 15% since 2007, but it's still only 66%, which is still well below the district average. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think it's very encouraging. I'm very happy to hear multiple voices up here today, not just coming up with a single issue that is going to be the key to solving this. It's a multifaceted issue. It's a matter of looking at racial disparities. Is there inherent racism in the schools themselves or in the curriculum? Is it a socioeconomic issue? Is it a lack or abundance of support in the home? And I think the answer to this is going to involve a little bit of all of these. And I'm really happy to hear multiple people up here that are going to be serving on the school board willing to sign on to that basic idea.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Pa Modu-An.
I think on this question, the school district acknowledging the fact that there is a gap that exists is a real laudable start. I personally believe that it requires a multifaceted approach, including the 3 constituents I have mentioned before, earlier on, the parents, the teachers, and administrators. There has to be a concerted effort by all these 3 groups. Parents must own up to their responsibilities. Teachers must own up. Administrators also must not slip on the wheel. We have to know and realize when and how things are shifting. There has been a shift in our school district over the last few years, which needs to be acknowledged so that the excellence which we all deserve, which all the children deserve in this district, will get. I think that there is no half achievement. We need excellence for all our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Radius, yes.
In a nation that prides itself on providing equal opportunity for all, too many low-income and racial minority children are falling behind their peers in school. So I would like to see us raise expectations and demand accountability. I would like to see us close the spending gap. Let's address some root causes. Why is this really an issue? Why is this happening? If we are to close the achievement gap, we must push for increased achievement performance and make educators, parents, students, and the community accountable for the results. It can't just be parents having this conversation about building family, school, community partnerships. It's also about holding our students accountable, turning off the television, closing down the social media. In my home, we shut down the screen time. So we have a certain amount of time that the kids have access to their computers, to the internet, to their phones. We have to shut it down because it's interfering with student learning and success in the schools.
Thank you. Jessica Craig.
I do believe the district is doing a good job in closing the achievement gap. However, I agree with everyone up here. There is work to be done. But I want to highlight the good that is going on in our district. Latest statistics do show that graduation rates are up. And 3/4 of our schools are in the state's top half for gap closing performance. That's a 25% boost from last year. This, along with including pre-K, will also help close the achievement gap. And just to highlight the latest MMR list that came out, Crestview Elementary is designated a focus school, and it's eligible for support through the Regional Centers of Excellence. So we need to be sure that those funds will be used to close the achievement gap in that school, and this should be a district priority to focus on that school. We need to monitor that. Overall, though, the district is doing a good job, and the statistics show that. Thank you.
Thank you. Colette Gaia Hempel.
I agree with what the other candidates have said. There are a couple of extra ways we can help. One is we still do not have the equal technology equipment. When we passed the levy, we were promised that these differences in level of equipment, like FM systems, and that would be given to all buildings. That's not been completed yet, but now we're giving iPads to students. We have to also look at the fact that minority students that are middle income, that are not special ed and not language learners, are doing just as well as white students, and that's a good thing. But we do have to fill in the gap on these poverty issues that are impacting a great number of our students. And the structured segregation of certain buildings, like Fair Oaks being 90% poverty for 6 years, is devastating to those children when we do not have the same equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to the next question now, and this is, do you support the district's vision for early childhood, including offering child care for children under 5 and in competition with local daycare businesses? Why or why not? And we will start with Agan Monri.
Thank you. In one word, yes. Now, when you say early childhood, to me, I think early childhood is one of the proven ways of closing the achievement gap. Most of the elite, that's what they do. So when you have early childhood, it's a way of engaging not just the kids at that early age, also the parents. I think that is where you form that bond with parents. Just yesterday, I went to my kids' school. I was talking with one of the teachers who told me that her class has been reduced this year because last year she had about 25 kids in her class, but because of this early childhood, a lot of the kids moved to their areas, home schools or wherever. So rather than have 25 kids, this year she has 16 kids. So she was just beaming about, the difference the addition of 6 kids makes in her class. So I support the idea.
Oh, okay. Our next speaker will be Colette Gaia Hempel.
I believe in early childhood, but I also believe that parents that can afford to pay for their preschool need to. I do not believe that the district has enough money to provide childcare for under preschool children. That's not the district's priority. It's supposed to be K-12, and the funding given for early childhood education should go towards children in poverty, children that have special needs, and to fill the gap where Head Start leaves off for those children that the parents cannot afford it. As far as childcare for preschool that is not paid for by the parents, I don't agree with that. We don't have enough money to provide class sizes that are appropriate in our K through 12 grades.
Thank you. Next speaker, Susan Brown Whistler.
I'm really torn on this question. I agree with what Colette just said, that it really isn't the school district's job to provide that. I am a little, I have the question of whether they're talking about on school property childcare, or if they're talking about like satellite spots. The other thing is, I wouldn't want to see early childhood, the ages particularly 2 through 5, becoming too academic. We've seen that kids who get pushed into too much academic learning too early tend to burn out. And there's something that is a pretty standard process in most schools. It's called the third grade slump. And if we can get kids out of the third grade slump, it's like kindergarten's fun, first grade is they're feeling proud of learning, second grade things get a little more difficult, third grade new things are introduced that make it quite difficult. If they slump then, the chances of them dropping out are huge. So I think we have to consider.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Radius Guest.
I believe that we have got to create a process that helps our most at-risk children and families. We all know the benefits of early childhood education. Preschool is an important opportunity for growth. Preschool prepares children for kindergarten. Preschool promotes social and emotional development. Preschool helps children to make choices. Preschool helps promote language and cognitive skills. I know that my children would not be who they are today had they not participated in an early childhood education program. I have had children at Maple Grove Senior, Maple Grove Junior, Cedar Island, and Oakview Elementary School. My children are who they are because they were able to participate in an early childhood education program.
Thank you. Next, Jessica Craig.
I do support the district's vision. By offering childcare for children under 5, we introduce district-approved curriculum at an earlier age, which will help close the achievement gap. There's better oversight of children's progress from an earlier age, and it's a smoother transition for kids entering into kindergarten. Plus, it's convenient for families with older children. Economically speaking, it will probably force local daycare facilities to lower their prices. We'll see how that turns out. But overall, I do believe and support in the vision, in the district's vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Burkett.
Yes, I support our early childhood programs. We have preschool programs for 3-year-olds, pre-kindergarten, and 4-star express programs for 4-year-olds. Some of these programs may offer sliding fee schedules for low-income families that qualify, while the Title I school readiness program is free. In some cases, parents may choose our programs for convenience, since they have older children already in our schools. These programs can be important to help our kids and their families feel more comfortable with our school environment. Since the state-funded all-day kindergarten, there have been ramifications. We had to adjust staffing at our in-house Kid Stop program, and I'm sure our community daycare providers were impacted by all-day K as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Delma Francis.
I must say, when I read this question, I was a bit confused because the school district is not and will not be in competition with daycare centers. That's not the job of the district. We do have early childhood education, but the job that we need to do is make sure our kids are ready for school. And that is mandated legislatively. The district must make sure that our kids are ready for school. But that has nothing to do with competing with daycare centers, not at all. number one, there's no money. Number two, there's not space. So how could we possibly do that? I don't think daycare centers have anything to worry about. On the contrary, I think daycare centers and the school district should work together to make sure that these little ones are prepared for kindergarten and first grade. And that's what this is all about. It's not about taking business away from daycare centers, not at all.
Thank you. And Robert Gerhardt.
Well, I firmly believe that the best place for a child under 5 is at home with a loving parent. I really worry about the long-term emotional effects of basically institutionalizing a child that young. There's got to be some unknown side effects that happen down the road. Now, that being said, I understand that not every family is able to take care of a child in the home, and daycare becomes a necessity. Now, like Delma got to a couple seconds ago, the question was drawn to daycare and competition between the schools and private daycare facilities. And I think in that case, the best possible scenario is to reinforce a free market economy. The school district should not be in the role of being in or in entertaining the idea of becoming competitors with private daycares and squeezing private business people out of their jobs.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. And we'll begin with Colette Guyot-Hempel. Annual teacher layoffs have become a common tool for many school districts when it comes to reducing cost. Do you support the district's current layoff policy, or would you like to see it change? Please elaborate on what you would change or why you would favor the current policy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Paul, would you
Yes,
answer
please.
the question?
That's okay.
Pardon, I knew this would happen.
I think the issues that confront the schools district is what I said earlier on. The child daycare component is just part of the process for us to achieve that excellence for one and all. I think that it's relevant. I don't think it will be in any way in competition, because people who can afford it will choose to place their kids where they want them to be. I think it's a necessary prerequisite for the process of educating our children, and all of us know and realize the significance of having that preparatory foundation for our kids. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to question number 4, and I apologize to Paul. Colette Guyot-Hempel, would you care to respond to the teacher layoff as a common tool for reducing costs, and do you support that policy, or would you like to see it change?
I would like to see us focus on the classrooms being protected. In the past 10 years, assistant principals, cultural liaisons, behavior specialists, although they were at some buildings, have been added to all buildings. Literary coaches and ATTP coaches have been added. Now, some of these positions could have been combined so that, like the assistant principals, we're also doing the literary coaching. They should be able to help teachers do their jobs better if they're going to be an assistant principal. The position was originally created to provide for someone to be in charge when a principal was gone. These positions could be combined, and we could be saving some money so that we would not be making the class sizes larger in the future if more cuts are needed. I also believe that we need to cut more administration before teachers.
Thank you. Jessica Craig.
In the past, districts have laid off probationary teachers in large groups in an effort to save money. However, this is an outdated practice, and our district does not do this. The statutes that govern education are well thought out and protect teachers as well as districts. And the state statute does require layoffs of probationary teachers first. That's the teacher tenure statute. Secondly, in our district, contract negotiations are also governed by state statute, the Public Employee Labor Relations Act, also known as PELRA. Lastly, administrative protocol that governs some aspects of how teachers transfer in and out of positions. That's always done in collaboration with the teachers' labor union through meet and confer sessions with the district. So I do favor the current layoff process as it is in strict compliance with state statute as well as in collaboration with the teachers' union.
Thank you. And now the next speaker will be Pamadou An.
I believe that the school system, the teachers' skill and performance need to be considered. I believe that the state statute, there's nothing that is enshrined in stone. If something is not working, there is need to review what's going on. And I think the challenges we have faced and we are facing just shows us that there is need for that. State statute, yes. It was the House that passed it. We can amend that and to make sure there is a conversation between the teachers and administrators and legislatures so that we can have the conducive atmosphere that would best serve these layoffs where skills are considered, seniority is considered, and also performance is considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Gerhardt.
I absolutely do not support the district's layoff policy, which currently supports seniority over skill. And that is codified in state law. I mean, the school district doesn't have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to dealing with that issue. One of our own principals told me that under this policy, he had to lay off 2 younger teachers because he couldn't lay off 1 older teacher. In Wisconsin a couple years ago, 2010, Megan Sampson, young educator who was named the Outstanding First-Year Teacher of the Year by Wisconsin Council of Teachers of English, along with 480 other young teachers, got the axe while the rest of the teachers, good and bad alike, were protected simply because of the amount of time they'd put in. Since then, Wisconsin has changed its laws. A couple years back, a similar bill was introduced here, but Governor Dayton vetoed it as soon as it reached his desk. I'd be very, very hopeful that after this November 4th, we might be able to see something like that and revisit that topic again.
Thank you. Delma Francis.
Well, I agree with Mr. Gerhardt here that I don't agree with the way the layoffs are done. I don't know what we can do about it because legislatively, we don't have a lot of room to make changes. But I'm really disturbed by the yo-yo effect of the layoff process, and I think it negatively impacts the work of our teachers. It's difficult to do your best for kids when you're wondering if you're going to have a job next year. And also, I remember it's also hard for us to do what we're trying to do in providing teachers of color. This district, I mean, with 51% kids of color, I mean, it's ridiculous. I went into a classroom one day, I think it was Northview Junior High, and this little boy said, "Oh, wow, I've got a teacher that looks like me." That broke my heart. It broke my heart. In 8 years of schooling, he had never had a black teacher. That's wrong. We got to figure out a way to fix it. And I don't know how. I'm not sure. I'm not going to stand up here and say that I know because I don't, but we need to address it.
Thank you. Thank you. Radius guess.
And in addition to there being 51% students of color, there are 2% staff of color, just to kind of share that information with you as well. And I do not support that layoff policy based solely on seniority. I'd love to see criteria that would consider chronic absenteeism, you know, teachers who have been absent more than 8 times in a given school year without a documented medical reason. Principal evaluations, I believe, should be considered. Teachers who have received an unsatisfactory rating in the past year. Absent teacher reserve pool, teachers who have not been able to find a permanent position in the past 6 months. I think that there are other ways that we should be exploring this particular issue, perhaps participating in some sort of a participatory leadership or community engagement forum that would allow us to have a conversation about what this should look like, and then approach the legislator to make some changes.
Thank you. Agan Yi.
Thank you. First of all, whether or not we have a policy, first, we don't have such a policy in our district. We don't. What we do have is a strategy for recruiting, retaining, and developing our teachers. If it becomes necessary to deal with budget reductions, I will hope that there's a process for deciding our resource allocations. I understand, sometimes, when your hands are tied, you have to do, go beyond. However, when you have a distinction between the probationary teachers and those they call the continuing contract, to open up space, what is wrong with, presenting the early retirement incentive? Because if you do that, that will create room for our older teachers to be honored and leave the service, and thereby create room for the younger ones to come in, rather than just, lay them off without considering the years they've invested in our district.
Thank you. Jim Burgett.
I've been on the board during periods of budget cutting. It is very difficult to make these decisions, knowing the impact that they have on staff and students. We always strive to keep the cuts away from classrooms, but when over 80% of the budget is for employee salaries and benefits, sometimes we have no other choice. Our district policy has been to work with the community and stakeholders to identify budget priorities. We then align the budget with our strategic objectives. District policy is also that we must abide by Minnesota law. One of those is, for example, called PELRA, the Public Employee Labor Relations Act, and work with our many employee groups according to their contracts. Together, these additional constraints limit management choices about retaining and placing staff. I would like to see more flexibility provided by the legislature by modifying PELRA and see our employee contracts adjusted to reduce bumping and allow placing staff where they are needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Brown Whistler.
Well, as you can imagine, as a teacher, I'm not going to be an advocate for laying off teachers. In my visits to the schools this past fall, I've heard from some of the elementary school teachers that they have classrooms with 27 and 30 students, one teacher. I would challenge all of you to spend 1 hour with 24 7-year-olds by yourself and decide whether our teachers are worth it. I think we're some of the least respected professions, and we are one of the most important. I think we need to be hiring more teachers, and that means finding ways to get the budget so that it can work for teachers. I don't think any of you realize how hard teachers work.
Thank you. We'll now begin with our first audience question, and it will be for Colette Guy at Hempel. In your opinion, how successful are the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math programs in our district? Do you support STEM programs? Why or why not?
Yes, I support STEM programs. My son went to Edenbrook Elementary, and then he went to Fred Moore Middle School. When he was going to come back to the district had no junior highs offering Algebra 2. He went to the SEMS program at Blaine High School. He is currently at Hamlin University, and he received over half of his tuition for all 4 years, guaranteed by Hamlin, based on his academics.
Thank you. Susan Brown Whistler.
Yes, I agree with the STEM program, but I think we also need to encourage students to develop the right side of their brain, the creative and critical thinking side. That's one of the problems I see with many of the students in my freshman classes, is they don't know how to think critically, and they can't come up with creative ideas for research. So I think, yeah, STEM is very important, but there are kids and adolescents who can excel outside of those programs in other areas.
Thank you. Robert Gerhardt.
Well, I'm an electrical engineer, so what do you think? But I mean, that being said, the future of our economy lies in math skills, engineering skills, science skills, hard sciences and things like that. I see way too many college graduates who have softer degrees and they're having trouble being employed when they should have been focusing on more productive majors. But that being said, also, my youngest, the one in the pink right back there, is going to Birch Grove. Arts magnet school. And she is developing the right side of her brain, so we need both.
Thank you. Jessica Craig.
Yes, I support the STEM programs. To have a specialized focus is fantastic for our students. The Brooklyn Junior High program is the STEM plus arts, so it does give some attention to the arts, and I see that this program is successful, so I do support it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Pan Moduan.
Yes, I do support the STEM program, but in Addison, there is a need to have a holistic choice for students. It is very important that they are given the choice so that they can choose what best outcomes out there. So all students should avail themselves with that opportunity so that they can excel and meet our community's requirements.
Thank you. Jim Burgett.
Well, I'm also an engineer, so certainly I support science and technology education. We also need to remember, though, that the STEM program has more purpose than that. It also is a way that the district has used to help move students among schools and provide school choice. And that's very important for some schools that don't feel that their needs are being met at that specific school. Thank you.
Thank you. Delma Francis.
Well, I do support STEM schools, but not to the detriment of schools that provide an arts education. As my fellow candidate said, you would be so surprised how many kids cannot write a coherent sentence, much less a paragraph. I spoke to an English teacher once who said she got a paper from a kid who had written it in text-ease. And I said, I really hope you send it back to her or him. We have got to teach our kids how to write and communicate. Even people in sciences must communicate. So that's how I feel about that.
Okay. Agan Monyi.
Thank you. I want to re-echo what Delma just said because one of my neighbor, his 2 kids are in this STEM program. Now, it's one thing to be skilled in technology and all these things, but it's so sad when you cannot hold a simple conversation with these kids. It's just difficult, When they go to the library, they can't read. All they want to do is just play with fixed things. And again, I appreciate when they come to fix my TV. But when it comes to just simple communication, these kids struggle. So to me, we should find a way to embrace all these kids and let them go to their area of specialty.
Okay. The next question. ISD 279 has racial disparity in its suspension rates. Do you support a moratorium on nonviolent suspensions? Why or why not? And the first person will be Jessica Craig.
I'd like to answer that STEM question first.
Oh, did I skip you?
Yes.
I am so sorry.
That's okay. And what's important to me is making sure that we expand the horizons of all children. I mean, I know that STEM programs are important, and yes, I'm an advocate of STEM programs, but I'm also an advocate of magnet schools. And magnet schools create multiple opportunities for students to expand their horizons so that we have culinary programs and language programs and performance arts programs in addition to math, science, engineering, and technology kinds of programs. So I advocate magnet programs and expanding the horizons of all children.
Thank you. And again, my apologies. Jessica Craig, would you care to answer the second question? ISD 279 has racial disparity in its suspension rates. Do you support a moratorium on nonviolent suspensions? Why or why not?
Yes, I do support a moratorium. We recently learned that Minneapolis public schools also have the same issue, and we need to look to other school districts to see what they're doing as well, and navigate our way through this process. We need to find out, or at least assess, the reasons why we're sending kids into suspension and find out what's wrong with our criteria for sending them into suspension. So, thank you.
Thank you. Pama Duan?
Yes, I would support a moratorium, but there is need to investigate what classified as a suspension. We need to review the policies that we have at the moment to see whether they are lopsided, they are not meeting the outcome that we desire. And as a result, we're having such imbalance in suspension. So I would support that move.
Thank you. Agan Monyi, would you support,
Yeah.
okay, the racial disparity in its suspension rates? Do you support a moratorium on non-violent suspensions? Why or why not?
Absolutely, I will support it. First of all, when we say we have a racial disparity, the reasons is not just one. Home, suspension, because when you suspend kids, automatically they are not learning during that period. Suspension should not just be the first option, it should be the last option. After you exhaust all options, then you go to suspension, because I know when kids are belligerent, sometimes you want to, if they become belligerent, unsafe to themselves and unsafe to the other kids, you want to keep them away, but it should not be the first option.
Thank you. Radius guess.
Absolutely. I'm concerned when I walk into an elementary school, middle school, and I see children sitting in the hallway. I know that I'm concerned about why they are not learning, because when a child is not in the classroom, they are not learning. There are some things that we need to do to examine what those nonviolent excuses are for expelling and suspending children from school.
Oops.
That's a conversation that we need to have. All children need to be in the classroom learning. And so we need to provide our teachers with some tools, some resources that they can use so that suspension is not the only choice for them.
Thank you. Colette Guyot Hempel.
I'll take a different stand. One is if a child's being disruptive and wrecking the learning for everyone else in the classroom, they need to leave the classroom. Whether that's a suspension or not, there's different levels. But bullying and cyberbullying and various other things that are not punching someone can be just as devastating as a punch. And we have to make sure that there's a consequence for inappropriate behaviors for all children's learning.
Thank you. Susan Brown Whistler.
I'm against, I'm for a moratorium on suspending students. My son was a disruptive child, very bright, but wanted to be the class comic. He was suspended, and he looked at it as a vacation. And as some of my colleagues had said, if they're not in the classroom, they're not learning. The purpose of school is to teach them. I think that we need maybe more mental health professionals working within the district to take care. When children are angry, it's for a reason. Frustration leads to anger and aggression.
Thank you. Robert Gearhart.
I'd also support the moratorium. The thing that we have to be careful about is how we define violent. That could be twisted in a lot of interesting ways that would not adhere to what we intend and could be exploited. I think the school district is already doing a pretty good job for nonviolent offenders with positive behavior modeling, where some of these kids just don't know how to behave properly. And those positive behaviors are modeled for them so they learn, because maybe they haven't learned it at home. That does happen.
Thank you. Jim Burgett.
I do not support a moratorium. I think we need to do this intelligently and learn that actually a suspension is a symptom. It is not a root cause. We need to learn why the child was suspended and learn how to teach them the proper behavior and work with them and find out, is this something that we need to get social workers involved, mental health professionals? We need to find the root cause, but the suspension is not the cause.
Thank you. Delma Francis.
Having been in the classroom, I know that there's a lot of disruption. Boy, is there a lot of disruption. But you have to look at why. I get on my soapbox every time I'm in a different faculty lounge, and I tell, especially, it's Caucasian teachers, do not go easy on these little African-American kids and Hispanic kids. Hold them to the same standard that you hold everybody else. If you don't ask for anything, you're not going to get anything. These kids are bored, and they feel like nobody cares enough to hold them to a certain standard. That's what needs to be done. Hold these kids to the same standard as others.
Thank you. The next question, and we'll start with Jim Burkett. Do you believe the recent bullying legislation will decrease bullying? Explain.
I'm pretty certain that bullies don't read legislation.
No clapping. Hold your applause till the end, please.
I don't think we've ever intentionally allowed bullying. I don't think changing the law is going to have any effect, or very minimal. Thank you.
Thank you. Delma Francis.
Oh, I agree with Jim. I don't think legislation is going to stop bullying. You've got to address it with the child. And as someone said earlier, make sure we have social workers and mental health professionals in place, because the bullying has a root cause. You've got to get at it. And I think that's what's going to help, not legislation, because you're right, they don't read legislation.
Thank you. Jessica Craig.
And I would agree 100%. The recent bullying legislation, it creates more work for the schools. I don't know if that's really worth it. Bullies don't read legislation. And like Delma has said, and everyone else, we need to look at the root cause, the reason why these children are acting out the way that they are, and legislation's not going to dictate that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Brown Whistler.
Yeah, legislation never changed anything, okay? We need to look at where this is coming from, the ground of it. Is it starting at home? Is it starting on the playground? Is it starting in the classroom? Is it starting in the hallway? We've got to find out what's going on and why. And that's what I mentioned earlier. We need more help. We need social workers. We need mental health professionals. We can see when things are going awry with kids, when they're not on the track. And the sooner we catch that and redirect them, the better it's going to be for everyone.
Thank you. Agan Monyi.
Okay, thank you. From the mental health standpoint, though, some of these inappropriate behaviors we see are symptoms. They are symptoms of some underlying issues. In terms of whether the legislation will stop it or not, I hope it does. I hope it does. Maybe not. I don't know. But I think that is one of the areas where we need to involve families with these kids and let people, become successful role models in lives of these children and teach them, what is appropriate and what is not.
Thank you. Robert Gerhardt.
Kids can be cruel. That's not an excuse, that's just reality. But, like we've heard multiple times, writing a law about it isn't going to change the fact. All it's going to do is further bind the hands of the schools. I'm a big proponent of pushing that control down to the local level, to the individual level. Who knows that situation better than the parent, the teacher that was in the room at the time, the principal in the building who knows this child? Somebody in St. Paul doesn't know those details, and they don't know how to respond appropriately. We need to address each of these issues as they come up.
Thank you. Radius Guess.
I view that legislation the very same way I view policy that we would be charged with implementing, and it's up to the actual sites to implement the policy that we design. So with that in mind, it says to me that what I'm doing at the schools right now is working. So we have a mediation, we have the students involved in that mediation, and then at the end of that conversation, we invite the parents to be a part of that process as well, so that they then can go home and do the same kinds of things that we're suggesting be done at the school. Because it's one thing to do it at the school, to create these programs at school, and not be able to follow up with it at home. And parents want to know what they can do to help.
Thank you very much. Paul Madon.
I don't support legislation to control or monitor or inhibit behavior. If we want to do that, then we'll be in big trouble. I think it is important to nip these incidences in the bud earlier on, with the combination of all stakeholders, from the parents to the teachers to the administrators, so that we can take care of this before it becomes offensive.
Thank you. And Colette Guyot Hempel, your answer.
Bullying's been going on forever. However, sometimes there are teachers and staff that have in the past said, Just deal with it or mediate. Mediating with a bully doesn't really work. The victim feels like they had part of the fault, and they didn't. And we do have to stop bullying. Do I think the law went too far in expecting the school districts to do it all? Yes. And it's not going to fix the total problem.
Okay, the next question. Given the perceived division between Osseo and Maple Grove, how would you propose to offer fair and excellent education across the district? And Jessica Craig, will you be the first answering person?
Boy, I don't know how to answer the question. The perceived division, I think, will, it helps to have open enrollment within our schools. Wherever you're at in our district, you can transfer to whatever school that you want to be in and receive education from any one of those schools. And I think that policy is good to have in our district. That's it. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Colette Guyot-Hempel, please.
Structured segregation regarding poverty and race has been going on in this district for a very long time. Part of the problem, though, is that we don't have the same equipment. Woodland had equipment that other schools still don't have when it opened in 2002. And we still have problems with curriculum. Edinburgh did not get the same math that Woodland got when my son was a 6th grader. It does make a difference.
Thank you. Radius guess.
I'm thinking about how schools are funded, and wouldn't it be nice to kind of take a look at the property taxes and maybe changing the way schools are funded? I mean, the demographic realities in our community are changing, and so with that in mind, people are looking at choices in terms of where their children will go to school. When we first moved here, we had a choice, and so we went to different schools, we interviewed those schools, we took a look at the various programs that each school offered, and then we made a decision that we felt was going to be right for our children. It's nice to have a choice, but I also know that sometimes those choices have financial decisions that may not be equitable.
Thank you. Palma Duhan.
I think our objective always should be what is best for our children. And in this case, we really need to look at the effectiveness of the program since it's begun. I believe that there are some elements of positiveness in the program. So, but going forward, it might give some kids the opportunity to improve themselves and have diversity, but it needs to be reviewed and looked at closely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. James Burgett.
As I recall, the question said about the perceived differential.
That's correct. The perceived division between Osseo and Maple Grove.
Well, it's the perception of schools that comes from the community. People have different things that they think of for a school, whether that's factual or not. And so it is our job to try to make each school as good as we possibly can and to celebrate those successes of each school. And there are many, and they are unique to each one. Thank you.
Agan Monvi.
For me, it comes down to, whether it is perceived or factual. It comes down to the results we get from our schools. If one school is doing well and another school is not, parents are going to form these opinions whether we like it or not. That is the reason to be able to leverage the resources we have in our district so that every school is at least on the same par.
Okay, Susan Brown Whistler.
I visited at both Maple Grove and Osseo High School, and that was an issue that was brought up by one of the principals. However, what I noticed was that those schools offered different opportunities. And since we have the open enrollment policy, I think, certainly we can look at where one school might need more. But in terms of, I just don't see that there's a real problem there, not according to the administrators.
Thank you. Delma Francis?
Well, excuse me. I think the perceptions are just that, perceptions. I've lived in the district for 17 years, 16 years in Brooklyn Park, and a year in Maple Grove. And I don't see a lot of differences between children and teachers. I mean, across the board. It's pretty much the same. Everybody wants the best for their children, whether you live in Osseo, Brooklyn Park, or Maple Grove, in a little tiny piece of Plymouth. It's all the same. We want the best for our kids, period.
Thank you. Robert Gerhardt?
Well, perception is 9/10 of reality, so ergo, there is a problem. But like we said in some of the earlier questions, there's multiple reasons for the origin of the problem, and we need to answer that question first. But in the meantime, I think what the best solution would be is to allow more choice within schools, allow more mobility of students between schools, because what that also gives you is an extra variable to look at. If one child is doing poorly in one school but excels in another, now we have one more data point to look at.
Thank you. The last question I think we can fold into the closing remarks. The last question is, what prompted you to run for the school board? And we're asking you to explain to us how you intend to best serve the school district and move it forward. And we will start with Delma Francis.
You would start with me, I've got hiccups. Well, I decided to run for the school board because, like I said, I think I have some insight into our various schools that others don't have. I care about kids deeply, as I'm sure everyone does, but I think that it's time to step up. So many people say, well, I would do it, but. Well, I'm through with the buts. I'm going to go ahead and try to do my best, if I'm elected, to make a difference, a positive difference. I think we have an awesome school district. We really do. We just need to tweak it and work on these things that we have determined are situations that shouldn't be existing. The achievement gap, the gap between kids of color and others when it comes to suspensions. These are things that we really need to look at, and I am willing and able to take a look and help to make a difference.
Thank you. Agan Muranyi.
Thank you. I think the primary reason that got me involved in this was every time you go into the community and you meet with some of these parents of color, one thing that they consistently say, we don't feel we believe in this, we belong in this district. As Dema said, our district is a great district. But is it perfect? No. There are things to be worked on. There are things that are already good. For me, let us look at what is not working and copy what is working to correct it. Another thing is, when you talk about, the racial disparity, like you said earlier, the district has acknowledged it. Let us take steps to fix it, because, we cannot afford to keep this many kids failing, because this is the future of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Gerhardt.
Well, I have 4 reasons why I'm running, and they're named Heather, Brianna, Lisa, and Alex. I've got 4 kids in 3 different schools in this district, so whatever happens in our schools, good or bad, comes back on my family fourfold. And that's an important factor to me to make sure that things are done right. I think the way that I can best serve the district and move it forward is by listening. It's not the school board's job to come in and say how it is. It's for them to sit back, have the community come to them and tell the school board how it is, and then the school board acts as servant leaders and is able to execute on what the community needs. I think that's probably the best way that I can help the district. And to that end, if you want to learn more about me, please visit my website, www.electgerhardt.org, and I ask for your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Burgett.
We currently have some major initiatives underway. These include grade reconfiguration, equity work to close achievement gaps, positive behavior intervention practices, and the new digital learning plan. I'd like to see the district behave more like a world-class customer service organization also. For example, treat our families and students like valued customers. Whenever a phone call or an email arrives, it should get a timely response every time and be tracked. I would also like to adopt the Baldrige Award. It applies proven quality systems practices to public schools. It's awarded to organizations that are leading innovative practice, dynamic management, sound financial performance, outstanding employee and customer satisfaction, and a solid commitment to excellence at proven results. Over the past 3.5 years, I've demonstrated my willingness to work with the community on the challenges we face together. I sincerely ask for your vote on November 4th. Don't forget, vote Burgett.
Susan Brown Whistler.
This has been a real learning experience for me, and I'm very impressed with the candidates in this forum. Education is my passion. I have been in school, either as a student or a teacher, since I was 4 years old. In fact, I started at Willow Lane in Brooklyn Center. That's how long ago that was. I want to be part of the process. I want to move to the next level. I want to be able to help contribute through my expertise in education and in child and adolescent development. I think I can learn as much from the board as I can offer them, and that's what I'm really looking for. I hope that you will consider me in your decision this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Colette Guyat Hempel.
Good evening. Thank you again for coming and supporting forums for your politicians. There's 2 more forums. One is being provided by St. Joseph's the Workers Church, and there's also one by CPAC by the school district. I hope you'll plan on attending, and I hope you realize that there's a lot of people up here that really care about the children, and that's who this is about. The children need to have equal equipment, equal facilities, and equal opportunities. They need to know that every one of them is important. They need to know that we care about each of them the same way, and that we will support them in their dreams by giving them the class sizes, the electives, and other choices for their future. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Craig.
I decided to run for school board about a year ago. I have 3 children, 2 of whom are school age and attend schools in the district, and they're biracial, they're half Asian. And we're also in a lower economic status. And one day my daughter comes home from school with a stamp, bright red stamp on her hand that says she doesn't have enough money for lunch. And it irritated me. I wanted to run for school board simply from my heart, because I believe that there are hidden biases within our system that we're just not aware of, and they need to be exposed. And so I'm here simply advocating for my children as a mother, and that's why I'm running for school board. And I believe that all of us up here bring something to the table. We're all phenomenal people. I can see it just here now. As you go to the polls, remember that we're all here. We're great candidates, and we're all doing it from somewhere in our heart. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Radius Gas.
I was a stay-at-home mom for 16 years. I have a master's degree in education. I have always wanted to run for office. I want to be a public servant. I have been a professional volunteer for so many years, founding PTAs, PTA president on the council, and then an employee for the national PTA. So I am a community organizer. I understand how school systems work. I understand how to help other parents navigate their way through the educational system. I have 2 children that have IEPs. I have 2 children that also have had 504 plans. I understand special education. I understand what it means to be representing all children and speaking up for all children on a school board. Please vote for me. Yes, guess for school board.
Thank you. And Pamanuan.
My dedication or commitment to run wraps around my story. 14 years ago, I emigrated to this country with my wife. We had 3 children. The last 10 years showed what? I did my bachelor's and my master's. My wife did her MBA. During all that period with work and school, for the last 10 years, and that is the type of dedication I want to bring on board. Through my kids, which is 14, 12, and 6, I learned about the school system. I learned what was going well, and there is a lot of things that were going well. I learned also some of the areas that could be improved. I am offering myself for that excellence to be brought to bear for all our children. We can close the achievement gap and at the same time raise achievements for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all of the candidates. This conclude, didn't I get everybody? Yes, yes. Okay, this concludes the candidate forum for School District 279, and you can now applaud. More information and you have specific questions, you can contact the candidates directly afterwards or go to their websites for additional information. Once again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters and the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank you for coming or watching this event to learn about the candidates for ISD 279. I especially thank all the candidates for participating in this forum and being willing to serve the community and participate in the democratic process. Check out the Secretary of State website to find your complete personalized sample ballot at www.mnvotesinfo at Secretary of State, State MNUS, and other information on registering and where to vote. You can also vote early by absentee ballot at your local courthouse. If you would like to learn more about the League of Women Voters and how to join, visit our website at www.lwv.org. We welcome both women and men as members. We are an equal opportunity organization, and there is room for all. And lastly, as your candidates have encouraged you, get out and vote on November 4th. Your vote truly counts. Thank you and have a good evening.